It doesn't happen all at once. The occupation arrives slowly. First, with whispers. Then, with checkpoints. Then, with walls you never agreed to. One morning you wake up, and your street feels different. The soldiers are still strangers, but their boots sound permanent. Their eyes search your windows, your doors, your life. Freedom doesn't vanish overnight. It fades, quietly, under curfews and closed roads, under rules written by someone who doesn't speak your name. They say it's for security. They say it's temporary. But the walls grow higher, the roads narrow, the sky feels smaller, and suddenly, your home is no longer yours. It's a cage. At first, people protest. They shout. They march. They carry banners that flap against the armored trucks. But time is heavy, and fear is quiet, and soon, even defiance learns to hide. Children grow up memorizing soldiers' faces instead of playground games. Parents measure their days between power cuts and permission slips, and the news repeats the same sentence. This is the new normal. But deep inside, no one believes that. Not truly, because under every locked gate, beneath every confiscated street, in the quiet corners of every home, the old stories still breathe, the stories of before, the stories of what belongs to them. And no wall, no soldier, no rule can silence that. It begins with small rules, where you can walk, what time you must be home, which roads are no longer yours. They call it order. You know it as control. The checkpoints multiply. The questions never end. Where are you going? Show your papers. Prove you belong. But how do you prove you belong to the land your ancestors are buried in? The land your stories were born from? The land that holds your name. Like roots in soil, the soldiers come and go. But the walls stay. The towers stay. The silence stays. And slowly, the city forgets what it was like to breathe without permission, to move without fear, to speak without weighing every word. Against consequence, the markets shrink. The schools close early. The flags, the colors, the language fade from the streets, but not from the hearts. They hide their songs now. They teach history in whispers. They pass hope like smuggled bread, quiet, necessary, defiant, because though the land is watched, their spirit is not. And no checkpoint, no soldier, no occupation can cage the part of them that refuses to forget. Some days, the silence is heavier than the soldiers. It presses against windows. It lingers in alleyways. It follows you like a shadow that never leaves. People learn to speak with their eyes, to share fear without words, to pass warnings and glances, because walls have ears now. And trust is a dangerous thing. The news says peace is near, but the streets say otherwise. Barbed wire coils around rooftops. Cameras watch every corner. And even the birds seem unsure where they're allowed to fly. Children draw maps of their neighborhood with missing streets. Their games are interrupted by sirens, by checkpoints, by the dull ache of waiting. But in the cracks of this quiet oppression, life fights its way in. A boy kicks a soccer ball down a forbidden street. A girl paints the flag on the inside of her closet door. Old men sip tea and remind each other this is still home. It's a dangerous hope, but it's the only kind they have. Because no matter how many rules are written, no matter how many soldiers patrol the rooftops, there are things they cannot occupy. The stubbornness of memory, the quiet fire of belonging, the simple, impossible refusal to disappear. The hardest part isn't the checkpoints. It isn't the walls or the soldiers with their rifles pointed at the ground. It's the waiting, the quiet, endless waiting. Waiting for the power to come back. Waiting for a permit to leave your own neighborhood. Waiting for the day. This all feels like a nightmare that finally ends. But nightmares here are lived with open eyes, and the calendar stops making sense. When every day feels exactly the same, watched, restricted, unfinished. In the evenings, people sit on rooftops. and stare at the city that was once theirs. They remember the streets, before they were checkpoints, the schools, before they were shuttered, the neighbors, before they disappeared in the middle of the night. They tell stories to their children, stories of olive trees and open markets, of weddings that lasted until dawn, of a time when freedom wasn't a word whispered in secret. And though the children have never seen that world, they carry it inside them, in their names, in their eyes, in the quiet fire that refuses to fade. Because walls may block the roads, but they cannot block memory. They cannot block love, and they cannot block the simple, stubborn hope that one day the gates will open and the land will be theirs again. Somewhere beneath the roadblocks and barbed wire, the land still remembers. The soil does not forget footsteps. The trees do not forget names. And the wind still carries the voices of those who refuse to be silenced. It's quiet now, but not the quiet of peace. It's the quiet of watching, of waiting, of people holding their breath for a future they can almost touch, but never reach. And yet, they plant seeds in courtyards, in broken flower pots, along the edges of forbidden streets. They grow herbs, small flowers, sometimes only weeds. But even weeds are proof that the land is still alive, that they are still alive. Soldiers can stand at the gates. Walls can slice the city in half. But roots run deep, and roots, they don't recognize borders. A grandmother teaches her granddaughter the recipe for bread. A father shows his son where the olive trees once stood, and beneath the restrictions, beneath the occupation, life insists on remembering what belongs to them. They cannot always speak their truth out loud, but they live it in quiet gardens, in hidden songs, in the unshakable knowledge that no wall lasts forever, and no chain is heavier than the will to stay. They say the occupation is only outside, at the checkpoints, at the borders, in the streets you cannot walk, but it finds its way inside too, into kitchens, into classrooms, into the quiet corners of the mind. It teaches people how to shrink, how to avoid questions, how to carry fear like a second skin. Children learn the rules before they learn the alphabet, where not to go, what not to say, how not to look afraid, even when their hands are trembling. At night, parents whisper promises they're not sure they can keep. That one day, the walls will fall. That one day, the soldiers will leave. That one day, they will all wake up and belong to the land again. But mornings come, and nothing changes, except the faces at the checkpoints. The fences taller now, the permits harder to get, the hope quieter but never gone, because even in fear, there is resistance. Even in silence, there is memory. And even in the smallest, most exhausted heart, there is still the quiet belief that no amount of occupation can erase who they are. There are days when hope feels heavier than fear, not because hope is gone, but because carrying it costs everything. Still, they carry it in pockets, in prayers, in the quiet corners of conversations, where dreams still dare to speak. They plant olive saplings, even when they know soldiers might uproot them. They build playgrounds from scrap wood, even when they know the walls might close and further. They teach their children songs, even when they know their voices may one day be silenced. But hope is stubborn. It hides in places occupation cannot touch. It lives in the language passed from mother to child. It whispers in the call to prayer, echoing beyond barbed wire. It breathes in the lullabies sung beneath locked windows. The world watches, but forgets. The cameras leave. The headlines fade. But they remain, not because they have no choice, but because leaving their land would be a deeper loss than any wall, any checkpoint, any humiliation could ever bring. So they stay. They resist, sometimes loud, sometimes quiet, always unbroken, because belonging is not granted by permission slips or military orders. It is written in their bones. It is carried in their breath. It is alive, beneath every stone, every seed, every stubborn heartbeat that refuses to surrender. Somewhere beyond the checkpoints, beyond the barbed wire, beyond the towering walls, the land waits. It waits beneath the dust, beneath the rubble, beneath the silence. The olive trees still stretch their roots. Even when the ground is cracked, the hills still remember the songs that once echoed across them, and the stones, scattered and worn, still hold the names of those who refuse to forget. They walk the same roads every day, not because they're free, but because they cannot bear to abandon them. They trace the walls with their eyes, but their hearts move beyond them, across fields they can no longer reach, through neighborhoods they can no longer enter, to homes that live only in memory now. And even as the occupation tries to redraw their map, they carry the old one, the real one, etched in their minds, stitched into their stories, safeguarded in their dreams. No soldier can erase that. No wall can block it. No fear can silence it. Because this land, even in fragments, even in exile, even in occupation, belongs to them. And though the world may forget, they do not. The soil still knows their names. And one day, the land will call them home again. There comes a moment when exile feels normal, when walls are no longer shocking, when restrictions become routine. And that is the most dangerous silence of all. The world grows quiet. The outrage fades. The stories grow old. But they are still here, still waiting, still counted by numbers, not names, still weighed down by permits, by patrols, by promises never kept. But beneath that quiet surrender, a different fire burns. Children who have never seen their homeland still call it home. Teenagers who've never walked its streets still dream of its trees, its rivers, its sun. The memory survives, passed down in kitchens, in lullabies, in stories whispered like secrets, because memory is resistance. And one day, those who carry that memory will be the ones who return, not with permission, not with fear, but with the unshakable truth. That belonging cannot be stolen. That roots may be buried, but they never die. This is not the end. This is the waiting, the preparing, the quiet, steady refusal. To forget, to vanish, to accept that walls define who they are. They are more than borders, more than exile, more than the silence forced upon them. They are the land, and the land always remembers its people. One day, the walls will fall, not with noise, not with armies, but with time, with stubborn footsteps, with stories that refuse to stay quiet. The land will breathe again. The olive trees will stretch their arms wide. The hills will echo with songs, old songs, forgotten songs, songs that never truly left. And those who carried exile in their bones will finally lay it down, not in surrender, but in return. They will walk the streets, their parents described in stories. They will touch the stones that carry their grandparents' names. They will plant roots in soil that never stopped waiting for them. The world will call it history, but for them, it will be home. At last, they will not forget the years of waiting, the fences, the fear, the quiet resistance hidden in daily life, but they will rise beyond it, because belonging was never a question. It was a promise, written in the land, spoken in the language, carried in every breath of those who never stopped dreaming. And though this chapter ends with walls still standing, it also ends with truth the world cannot erase. You can occupy streets, you can divide borders, but you cannot occupy a people who carry home inside them